and to fight this COVID invincible enemy. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. Before we even start, we once again make the call that has been made by our president, that for all of us to win against this COVID-19, we need to stay at home. We would like to re-emphasize that message. We need to stay at home. We need to ensure social distancing. We need to ensure that we wash our hands regularly, because this virus can't move. It can only move through us. If we stay at home, we cut its legs. We therefore appeal to our people once again to continue doing what they are doing, to stay at home and cut the legs of this virus. Without any further ado, as this meeting has been called to explain the regulations that will take us further to the end of the month, without any further ado, I will now call upon the Minister of Culture, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, to come and speak to us on the regulations. Minister. By the way, again, just an explanation. After Minister has put forward to the public the revised regulations and strengthened regulations, she will leave. We have a whole team of ministers that will speak to the various regulations that speaks to their area of work. She has something urgent that she has to do. After she has presented, indeed, we will allow her to leave. Minister.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the media, colleagues, ministers, and thank you, Minister Mthembu. We meet again to discuss the same subject of COVID-19 and how to prevent its spread and how to try and flatten the curve. You'll recall that when the President spoke last week, he pointed out that at midnight, it will be exactly 3 weeks since our country entered into the unprecedented nationwide lockdown to contain the spread of the virus. He outlined the measures we have to take, as well as the changes that we have each had to make in our own behavior, and that together we have definitely slowed the spread of the virus. So today we are not coming up with many new regulations. We are extending the regulations that exist, that we are using today, but because the lockdown has been extended, we are extending those regulations. We will announce a few amendments to those regulations, and that's what we are going to talk about now. But I also want to explain that when we do stop the lockdown, we cannot do it abruptly, that today it's complete lockdown, tomorrow it's open completely. So we have to phase in so that there is an orderly move towards what would be a normality. But also to explain that there are measures that will remain beyond the lockdown. Because if you recall, there were measures that were in place even before the lockdown. So it doesn't mean that after the lockdown, everything will go back to normal. There will be measures that will remain beyond the lockdown. But for today, we'll just explain some of the changes that we're making in the regulations that are now being extended. I'll start with the issues of transport. In the amendments, we are stressing the issue of the prohibition of transportation of liquor. The only alcohol that is allowed to be transported is the one that is used for commercial purposes, for our sanitizers and the related issues. But liquor that we drink is not allowed to be exported in the same way that it's not allowed to be sold. So that's what we're adding, and we are saying at the ports, before, we were saying that all goods that come from high-risk areas must be sanitized. But this time, because we've been learning about this disease, we've now learned that actually if the goods have been at sea for many days, the virus will not survive. So there is no need at the ports for the goods that have been at sea for a long time to be sanitized, because the virus would have died. The other issue is that as we get ready for lifting the lockdown in an orderly, incremental manner, we have agreed that we must start decongesting the ports. So items that are already at the ports for export must start being exported, so that as the lockdown is eased and companies start manufacturing and exporting, they don't find a port that is completely congested with goods that were there before. So that is being amended. And then we come to the issue of funerals. Those regulations are still the same. You need a death certificate or a copy of a death certificate, and you go to the magistrate's court or to the police station to get permission to travel to another province. And of course, those who bury quickly, who may not have sufficient time to wait for the death certificate before they start their journey, we allow them to use affidavits, to go and do an affidavit to say they are going to a funeral, and then they will go to the funeral. And when you go to the funeral, of course, the funerals are still strictly for 50 people. That has not changed. It's still 50 people that are allowed. And we have also decided to move the issue of staying in hotels. The other area that we are introducing in the regulations is the issue of children. You will recall that we've been talking about that the children that were separated, where there is co-parenting, but the parents no longer live together. Some of the kids, when the lockdown started, they were at one parent's place, and now they need to move to another parent's place. The minister did do directions to that effect, but now we're putting it in the regulations that you have to have either a court order or there should be a family advocate's papers, or if you don't have those, you must at least have a birth certificate that shows the connection between you and the children that you are fetching or moving. So that's another area. The minister is here, she will expand on it, but it's now in the regulations that you are allowed, but these are the conditions that you have to satisfy. And then there are also regulations. There was an issue about the appointment of the judge that will oversee and monitor the work that has to do with the geolocation of people who are positive and their contacts. So that is just being corrected and amended appropriately. Then you'll remember that we had said coal mines that supply power stations must be opened. We are still saying that all the mines that supply ESCOM must be fully operational. And of course, because the lockdown is going to be open gradually, we need to make sure that there is fuel for people to move. Because at the moment, the demand for fuel was very low because a lot of people were locked down at home. They were not moving. So the refineries have now got to ramp up and work at full capacity to make sure that we don't run out of fuel. And smelters and furnaces, and the minister is here, he will explain. But also, those who know about mining, and the minister is here, he knows a lot about mining. He was a miner himself. So we are told that if you leave a mine for a long time, an active mine, but without activity in it, it poses a danger of rock falls and all those things. It increases the chances of seismic activities. So we don't want that to happen, and rock falls and collapse of mines. So we've also agreed that the mines must start operating. They'll start operating at 50%, and then the minister, through directions, will ramp them up to full capacity in an orderly way. But there are strict conditions around how the miners must come back. And those conditions include that there must be screening and testing of the miners that will be coming back to the mines. And the industry must provide quarantine facilities for those miners that might need it. And the mining companies must arrange for transport for the employees. The South African component of the employees, because the external component, those countries have their own lockdowns and all that, so that will be dealt with separately. Here we are just dealing with the local employees. But the minister will also expand on that. We've also, because of the extension of the lockdown, it's clear that we need to make sure that there are warehouses that are open, that supply components for essential services, whether it's water, whether it's electricity, whether it's either essential services and facilities, hospitals, and so on. So those warehouses must be operational to make sure that all those things that need to be repaired, maintained, are done. And also water tanks should be installed that have been supplied by government to areas where there is no water. And also vehicles that are used by people who are in rendering essential services, should they need repairs, emergency repairs, that should be opened for them. And so those professionals who do that will have to be now working. But also for homes, private homes. If you have a burst pipe or something goes wrong with your electricity, you should be able to call a plumber, a professional plumber or electrician to come and sort that out. So we're saying that also is now opened up. And we are also stressing the issue of wholesalers, groceries, bazaar shops, informal fruit and vegetable traders, but we are also including those who in small villages in some of our provinces do fishing and they sell the fish. So that is also allowed, but not cooked food. That is not yet opened. And we're also saying that call centers, you remember at the very initial phase, we had international call centers that were opened. Then we had call centers that service the essential services that should be opened. But now we're adding other call centers. For instance, we're adding the call centers that are used by retailers. For instance, when some people, when they have accounts at these shops, at Gas, Foshinis, or whatever, they also take insurance that should they lose their jobs or be unable to work and pay their account in the short term, the insurance should kick in. But the insurance can't kick in if you don't then call and restructure your debt or trigger your insurance. So those call centers have become very important, and those are now being opened. And amongst the institutions that must have permission to move around, we've added the Independent Electoral Commission to be able to move around. Of course, now we're using a lot of technology. As you know, people are working at home, people are Zooming, people are using all sorts of technology to communicate, to have meetings. So it's important that the ICT people who are able to repair, to assist, or render services to those essential services that are using technology, they should also be able to work. So those are some of the changes that are in the amendments that are in the regulations. But other than that, the regulations remain the same. But as I said earlier, because we are going to be opening up or easing the lockdown in an orderly, incremental manner, we are going to be probably every week announcing which areas are being open, incrementally, and the conditions of those opening. I don't necessarily want to name them, but there are things that already are affecting people. Winter is coming, and so things that go with that, obviously, will have to be attended to. Schools might be opening, things that go with that, but also industries will have to slowly come on stream. So don't think that, oh, every time now they are changing. No, it's an orderly way of easing the lockdown. We don't know. For now, the lockdown will end on the 30th of April. But even if it ends on the 30th of April, you can't just open the floodgates in one day. There has to be an orderly way. So expect that almost every week, new things will be coming, new conditions, new areas will be coming on stream. But some will remain in place for a very long time. So kafushane nje ngizothi namhlanje sizokwengeza izinsuku njengoba uPresident asho zokuthi abantu bahlale emakhaya. Imithetho ebikhona isazoqhubeka. Kodwa kukhona nje okumbalwa lana lapha esizokwenza ukuthi ukushintsha. Okwesibili, njengoba mangabe sekuthiwa abantu ababuyele emsebenzini nezimboni aziqala ukusebenza, akuzulungu ukuthi vele kuthiwe nje kubhubhu sekuvulwe yonke into. Kufanele ukuthi kuhambe kancane kancane ukuze kube kuhleleke, sisebenze ngendlela ehlelekile. Ngakho ke sizoloku sivula kancane kancane ezinye izinto ukuze kuthi mase kufika ilanga lokuthi sekuyavulwa kungabi nje i-chaos. So kulezo zinto ezinye sizivulayo ozakwethu la bazozichaza kabanzi, kodwa siyazivula izinto zokuthi abantu abasebenzela u-Eskom ikakhulu emayini amalahle kufanele asebenze. Kuzothi mase kuvulwa upetrol uzobudingeka kakhulu. Asifuni ke bese kuthiwa ayi upetrol awusatholakali mase kukhona indawo ezivulwayo abantu sebeqala ukuya emsebenzini. So lezo zindawo ezisebenza ukuthi sibe no petrol kufanele ziqala ukurefine uoyela ziwenza upetrol ukuze sikwazi ukuthi imoto nako konke okudingekayo kwazi ukusebenza. Nemayini ke lezi kade zimile ezingasebenzi ukuze abantu bangathi basebenzi bayasebenza kuwamatshe kuwohloka imayini, kufanele ukuthi kuqalwe kusebenze. Izoqala isebenze ngo-half bese umphathiswa lo aloke ikhuphula izifike seyisebenza yonke. Siyabona futhi ukuthi njengoba i-lockdown seyiqhubekile isikhathi kukhona izinto ezifuna ukukhandwa. Ke ngithathe nje imoto zamanzi ezihambisa amanzi emphakathini mazifile kufanele zikhandwe, ezithatha udoti kufanele zikhandwe. Amathange lawa ayiswa emphakathini kufanele akhelwe abekwe kahle. So zonke lezo zinto ekufuneka ke manje izitolo nama warehouse asebenza ngalezo zinto avulwe ukuze phela imoto zikhandwe yonke into edingekayo yenzeke. Nokuthi njengoba sesivala isikhathi kuyadingeka ukuthi ma emzini wakho kuqhuma ipipe lamanzi noma kunenkinga kagesi ukwazi ukubiza abantu abafanele bazokukhandela. Bese kuthi futhi laba abasebenzayo abenza umsebenzi lo ongavalwa ezibhedlela eimbonini zokudla kuphi makhona into okufuneka bakhandelwe yona kufanele bakwazi ukukhandelwa. Nezimoto abayisebenzisayo noma ezomsebenzi noma abahamba ngazo beye emsebenzini noma ezidilivayo kufanele ukuthi makufuneka zikhandwe zikwazi ukukhandwa. So lokho ke sekuzovunyelwa. Na basebenza ngama-computer nani makukhona usizo abalidingayo i-computer ifile kufanele ukuthi basizakale ngoba lezi zinto seyisebenza kakhulu manje. Nezingane ezihlukene nabazali bazo, abanye abazali omunye umzali uhlala lapha omunye umzali uhlala lapha, ingane ibinga lapha manje sekufanele ibuye sekuyavunyelwa kodwa kunemigomo kufanele uyilandele ukuze ukwazi ukuthi amaphoyisa akuvumela uhambe uyolanda ingane noma uhambise ingane. Leyo mgomo ke njengokuthi uthola incwadi enkantolo noma yommeli noma ube nesitifiketi esikhombisayo ukuthi wena nalengane nihlangene kanjani, isitifiketi sokuzalwa. Ezemingcwabo azikashintshi. Umngcwabo safuneka abantu abawu-50 bahlale ngokuhlukana, kugezwe izandla, kwenziwa ama-sanitizer. Kubalulekile ukuthi lokho kuqhubeke akukashintshi. Nokuthi ke kufuneka uveze isitifiketi noma ikopi yesitifiketi sokushona. Uma kuukuthi uyilabo abasheshe bangcwabe wenze i-affidavit yokuthi usujahile ngokumngcwabo mhlawumbe ukhona namhlanje. So kuzoloku ke kuvulwa kancane indawo nezindawo nama-call center lawa azosiza abantu abafuna ukuthi i-insurance yabo ibasize noma ukukhokha izikweleti noma ukwenzani. Sekuzovulwa lawo ma-call center ukuze abantu bakwazi ukuwathinta bakwazi ukusebenza ngalezo zinto abafuna ukuzisebenza. Nendaba yejaji leli elifanele libheke ukuthi uma kulandelwa abantu abama-contact belandelwa ngokutholakala ukuthi umuntu lo one-COVID ubela, ama-contact abela, kutholakala nge-geolocation yefoni. Lelo jaji elibhekayo ukuthi yonke into ihamba kahle, amalungelo abantu awaphulwa. I-amendment yakhona, isichibiyelo sakhona naso sikhona la. Ngingathi ke sizolindela ukuthi isonto nesonto kukhona izimboni noma izinto ezizobe zivulwa ukuze ukuvulwa kwale lockdown kube into ehlelekile ehamba ngomthetho. Nizoloku nisibona ke ominister abahlukehlukene bezochaza ngalezo zinto iviki noviki. Ingacabanga ukuthi hawu kade bela basitshela ukuthi kuvulwa lokhu manje futhi sebeza nokunye. Cha, uhlelo kuzoba ne-schedule yokuthi kuvulwa kanjani so lokhu simemeza leyo schedule. Izinto ezihambisana nokuthi inkampani zikwazi ukuvula but nezinto ezihambisana nezidingo zabantu nazo kufanele siyibhekelele njengoba kade ngisho nje ubusika sebuyangena, so izidingo zizohluka. Ehlobo sinezidingo ezihlukene, ebusika sinezidingo ezihlukile. So zonke lezo zinto zizobhekelelwa ukuze i-lockdown ivuleleke kahle ngobunono, hayi ngobudlabha. Siyabonga kakhulu. Ozakwethu bazosala ke mina khona la kusafanele ngiphuthume khona. Baphendule yonke imibuzo yenu eninayo. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you to Minister of Cooperative, Dlamini-Zuma. We now will ask colleagues, in short again, not in detail, to say what are the amendments from their various areas, so that we clarify what it is that we want to achieve with those amendments that are there. Indeed, we have gazetted now. All these amendments are gazetted, and as Nkosazana has said, indeed, the lockdown continues until the end of the month, which was the intention of extending the regulations, particularly those that were ending today. We are now extending them to the end of the month of April. Now, maybe let's start with the Minister of Social Development to come and speak to the regulations that speak to her area of work.
Let's deal with questions.
Start on one question.
You suggest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah. Let's deal with
I was
questions.
thinking it's better we deal with questions.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now we work in a collaborative manner. There is now agreement that instead of each minister coming here and speaking to their area of work, we take it now that all journalists and everybody have access to the amendments. We have put them on our various platforms of government. What we think we will now then do is to take questions, so that ministers are here to answer the questions. Do we have any questions on your side, Rabo Sisi?
Yes, Minister, we have a couple from WhatsApp.
Yes.
Can I go ahead?
Go ahead, speak ahead, and speak louder.
Okay,
Just like me, use your rally voice.
I'll try my best. The first question is from Isabel Fenter from Netwerk 24, and it's directed to the Minister of Police. She's asking, will regulations be amended to allow CPFs and other community security groups like Farm Watch to continue with their crime prevention patrolling? The second question is from Homozo Medupe from Daily Sun newspaper. It's directed to the Minister of Social Development. The question is there a relief fund for early childhood development practitioners, since children are currently at home and parents are not paying fees? If there is, how can this be accessed? The third question is from Alan from the Business Day. It's directed to the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, and he's asking how many mines are currently on limited operations, and how many people are back at work. Furthermore, what financial assistance can the state give to the mining sector, such as diverting funds in social labor plans, diverting funds from skills development levies towards funding COVID control systems, and tax relief breaks, if any? The next question is from Tanya Henkel from Imbali Community Newspaper. She's asking the Minister of Cooperative whether flowers are allowed to be supplied for funerals.
We will take the 5 for now. I see that some of the questions are not necessarily speaking to the regulations that we are announcing today. But before we even take these 5, let's hear those that are now ringing in, because we are virtual. How many do we have? We have 1. Okay, can we have caller? The caller.
We've got Bonga from EWN.
Members to allow CPF and other community security groups like Farm Watch to continue with their crime prevention patrolling. The second question is from Homozo Medupe from Daily.
Hi, Bonga. EWN, please pose your question and just close your radio in the background, please.
Okay, I've done that.
Go for it.
Thank you for your time, Minister Dlamini from EWN. I heard the minister talk about the issues of online, like call centers, but I just want to find out, what about e-commerce? People have been saying that why can't government revise or even just look at revising things such as ordering online and being delivered? Is that something that was considered? If yes, why not? Have you had anything on the regulation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, whoever who wants to start, and indeed the question might not necessarily be speaking to the regulations, but you can re-emphasize the regulations that are on the government gazette as we speak now. General, you want to start? No, come here, General. Goza laba. Ngoba bazokubona kahle. Sifuna ukuthi bakubone ekhaya. Why ufuna ukubhaca, General? Sifuna ekhaya bakubone kahle, General.
There's even an empty seat next to me.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good morning, it's good afternoon. The question is about the CPFs, the Neighborhood Watch, and other structures that might be utilized to patrol and do other works. I have several requests of the Neighborhood Watch if they can join the police and patrol with them. No. The question of patrolling is can be done by the people that has a line of accountability. When the soldiers do things wrong, when the police do things wrong, when the Metro Police do things wrong, you know where to go. I don't know if you do know where to go when Neighborhood Watch do things wrong, and what is the accountability structure. So that would be a problem. That's one. Two, people like soldiers, police, Metro Police, they have a history, they have something that you call a vetted and known. Neighborhood Watch, I don't know, I don't think they're vetted, and you have their history to tell who they are, where they come from, and all that. So I don't have a problem to engage on that one, but there are these shortcomings that are existing at the present moment. For CPFs, we are ready to engage with the CPFs. CPFs are doing the good job in most of the time, but sometimes themselves, they come across as problem when they get in politics instead of getting on issues on the ground. So we have received the problem of politics around the CPFs. But CPFs, again, we have no problem to engage with their national structure. We have been engaging with them, but we haven't come to the agreement exactly how we'll operationalize their involvement. So far, that is our take when it comes to the Neighborhood Watch, CPF, and all that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can now come back to you, Sis Lindy, on the question that has been posed. That's the Minister of Social Development, Minister Zulu.
Thank you very much. The question is related to ECD practitioners and those that are in employment. As far as the government is concerned, everyone who's a practitioner who is employed by government, nobody has been requested to remove salaries of people. They're gonna get their salaries. I guess the issue would be for those who are in the private sector, because ECDs are not only just government run, they are those that are run by the private sector. And I think that government has made the call to everyone to say they just need to pay the salaries. But I can only answer for government, because there was never a directive that anyone who is an ECD practitioner under government, their salaries must be removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister Patel, you want to speak to e-commerce? Thank you very much. And as you do so, if there is any emphasis in the new regulations that you want to make, all of us colleagues, if there's any emphasis that you want to make, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleague. The short answer on the e-commerce is we are looking at a range of additional areas, as Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma indicated. But I thought perhaps let's just contextualize that question, because I'm sure there will be a number of questions. Is this product coming up? Is that product coming up? So what we saw initially on the 25th of March with the announcement of the first set of lockdown measures is it was a sharp lockdown to contain the spread of the virus, followed by a gradual expansion of products and services that were added to limit the negative impact that communities were facing. Members of the media will recall that that first list were things like food, cleaning and hygiene products, medical supplies, fuel, and basic goods like airtime and electricity. In the 3-week period since then, we've seen additional categories added, like baby care products, like international call centers that render critical services outside of South Africa, like company payroll systems so that the HR function can ensure that wages and salaries are processed in this period. And today, as my colleague has indicated, a number of additional areas will be added through the gazetting process. They include artisanal trades for emergency repair work, stores selling hardware and components for emergency repair work, vehicle repairs for people who are involved in essential services, call centers of retailers providing short-term insurance policy cover, and ICT, that's information and communication technology services rendered to entities and institutions. Now, what we will be looking at is, out of the range of activities, which ones should gradually be reintroduced over the period ahead. And so, at this stage, until we are able to make those decisions based on health considerations, economic considerations, security considerations, it is not possible publicly to comment on those and indicate where we are with the review. But that whole range of activities in goods, in services are being looked at. And as the President indicated in the address to the nation, we're looking at a risk-adjusted approach to the period ahead, where the lockdown is enforced based on a risk adjustment and the information we get from both the medical professionals as well as the security information that we get. So I hope it deals not only with the issue of online services, but more broadly with the process by which we are looking at adding additional services and activities over a period through this gradual step-by-step arrangement. We're seeking to avoid a sudden, significant rush of people back to work at the end of the lockdown, and we're also seeking to be influenced by the health data and the work of scientists and professionals that are advising us on this issue. So I hope that covers not only that category, but also other categories that the public have raised with us, that we are certainly looking at all of the categories and will be making announcements as we conclude a review. Thank you very much.
Mantashi kusondela. Minister Mantashe.
The question sought to understand the category of mines that are in operation. I can only give you the broad categories rather than the exact numbers. There are mines that are fully operational, like collieries that supply coal to ESCOM, to refineries of oil and petrol. So all those are in full operation. The rest of the mines, there is another category of mines that we said operate at reduced capacity to actually maintain the infrastructure. And there are also mines that were totally closed. Now, in the amendment, we are identifying a risk, particularly in deep mines. If they are left alone for a long time, the stability of the ground gets tampered with. Number two, gases accumulate, and you may actually come up and be confronted with disasters like methane gas and other gases, or prevalence of seismicity and rockfall. That's why we say we must allow a situation of phased-in recall of workers to work in those mines and actually deal with the question of ramping up the production in those mines. That will do two things: minimize the risk of accidents and disasters. Number two, it will also sustain the infrastructure of production in the mines. Now, there was a question that was saying, will we allow social labor plan man to be redirected to address problems of COVID-19? We have not limited it to social labor plan. We said we'll take a portion of rehabilitation reserves, particularly the interest thereof, to actually be used and be accessible to address the risks of COVID-19. Therefore, we are quite committed to those. If you look into the conditions that have been attached to this regulation amendment, you will see that we're also refocusing the mines to screening, testing, and actually integrate their systems to the national system. So if you screen and you find cases, those cases must be reported in the national figures. And that's why we put there. And the last condition that is put there is that the Council for Geoscience should intensify the assessment of the stability of the ground. So those are the conditions that are attached, and many are actually directed at screening, testing, industry, providing quarantine facilities, industry collect the information, send it to the government center of information. So it doesn't remain independent. So there is a full commitment in the industry to actually contribute to fighting COVID-19. Thank you, Minister Tembo.
We are a caring government, and we care for all our people. When we receive certain reports, indeed we act in accordance with the spirit of caring. I would like to call upon the Minister of Defense to speak on some matter.
Thank you very much, Minister. And thank you, colleagues. I think let me start by saying we received the sad news over the weekend of a death in Alex. Allegations had been made which point to the South African National Defence Force, and all the security forces were on site at the time. Just to say that we've noted this report, and you may have picked up that yesterday the Chaplain General, together with some of the few soldiers who were around the area, we actually requested them to visit the family home and to pass condolences on behalf of the South African government and to reassure the family that there is investigation which is currently going on. The investigation is conducted by the South African Police Services, by the military police, and also the Military Ombuds Office. We are therefore unable to comment at this point about what the next course of action is going to be, but just to say to South Africans, we are saddened by what happened. We regret that which happened. We do not know exactly what the circumstances were which led to such, but that investigation, which is currently underway, will soon provide us with more information, and therefore we will be able to determine what steps to take at that point. But it's equally important for us to keep in mind that in such cases, obviously the law will take its course. And yes, as we have said before, our appeal is that our people should stay indoors. People should remain at home. People should not venture out to check what soldiers, what the police, and what the metros are doing by going out into the streets just for, to check what is it that they are doing, or even to provoke them. Security services are not there because there's a fight which is currently going on, or there's instability in the country. Security forces are all over the place, deployed everywhere in this country, because there is a pandemic which is currently gripping not just South Africa, but the world. And therefore, whatever steps we are taking, we're not taking these measures because we are a mean government, because we are being insensitive. We've taken these decisions because it has become necessary for us to do so. So I do want to really make a special appeal to young people that you have nothing to lose but your life. If you go out, you do it at your own peril. And when you do so, remember, you're going to come back with infection, and you are going to infect all of the people who live in that house with you. So I think that, and I'm happy that, Minister, you allowed me to say this even before this matter is raised by the media. The fact that we have not spoken on the matter should not mean that, or portray us as an insensitive government. We are very sensitive. And I also think that it's just unfortunate that there's a giggle there when we are discussing such a very sensitive matter. I don't know, maybe you haven't lost a father or a brother or a child. If you had, you wouldn't do what you're doing, young men. It's nice to be young. Nice to be young. But remember, we're talking about this because there is a problem out there. Somebody has died. So if your choice is to giggle about it, it's your choice. It's what you've decided to do. But it shows a bit of immaturity and insensitivity. So, on that note, South Africans, we hang our heads in shame that we have lost a person in some of the communities, and that we will not at any point defend what has happened, but equally it is important for people to give us time to investigate the circumstances under which this man has died in Alex. And just to say, Minister Mthembu, and to all South Africans as well, the delegation which visited the family home yesterday was well received. No anger, no bitterness whatsoever. It was people of South Africa visiting a family which has lost a loved one. And when they passed those condolences on behalf of our government, the people in that family accepted the condolences of government. So I think, in a sense, what we're saying is, yes, this may have caused a bit of tension, but we should never ever be projected as a government which is not caring. South Africans, time has come for all of us to really act decisively, that our people should not move all over the place, and that we should also pray, because indeed we don't know what eventually and when this thing will stop. We have a responsibility to actually pray for our country, pray for the continent, and pray for the world. Because somebody was saying perhaps this is the end of the world. Well, we don't know, none of us know how it will come. But what is important is that right now, all of us should partner together, should hold one another, should actually, and I think the spirit which has been demonstrated by the majority of South Africans is that South Africans are determined to defeat this pandemic. South Africans, we are South Africans. There's no government, there's no civil society, we are South Africans, and we're holding hands together as South Africans to walk together, pray together to defeat what is currently gripping the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We had 5 questions. Is there a colleague that I've missed to answer a question? If none, we will go back to the questions again. Let's take those that are called, that we are receiving online. 2. Can we hear them?
Minister, we've got 2 callers. The first one is Elaine from Argus Media. The last one is Carl from North Coast Community Radio in KZN.
Thank you very much. Can we ahead?
Go ahead, Elaine.
Thank you very much for taking my question. Elaine Mills from Argus Media. Minister Mantashe, I understand that the Richards Bay Coal Terminal is operating at reduced rates. I was just wondering, in the first 3 weeks of the lockdown, what percentage of coal exports were taking place? And going forward with the risk-adjusted amendments, will this be ramped up? And then if you will allow me just one more question.
Okay.
Thank you. There was a huge demand to use Saldanha oil tanks for storage. I was just wondering whether oil deliveries to Saldanha is allowed, and if so, is it at a reduced rate or is it at normal? In other words, all oil deliveries are allowed. Thank you very much.
Carl from North Coast, go for it.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning to the rest of our government leadership there. Yes. Good afternoon, sir.
Oh.
Good afternoon. It's lockdown fever. Yes, but I'll get right to the point. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank the government our government for getting close to our people. I would like to acknowledge the fact that both ministries have been available to grassroots communities in as far as information dispensation is concerned around COVID. If we could continue using the community radio medium also, as you've been doing, it will be of great help. It has had an impact, especially in the area that I live in, where we're getting direct information from yourselves. Secondly, I wanted to encourage yourselves as leaders that from the feedback we're getting from Umphakathi, our listeners, that you've got the total support. I'll speak of King Tetra district. You've got the total support of most of the citizenry of the country. So, Minister of Defense, you don't need to be so apologetic. We do have a culture of protest, a cycle of protest, and it's unfortunate that we have to find ourselves dealing with it in these circumstances. So can the government stop being too apologetic? Because you do have more support than you actually have dissension. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How many questions do we have then, Nanga?
17.
You? Okay. We will take 5 because you can differentiate between the various segments of media that we have in the country. Can we get on with it?
All right. A question from Sihle Mlambo from IOL. It's directed either to the Minister of DTI or Small Business, and the question is in relation to the issue of cooked food. Are supermarkets allowed to sell cooked food? If not, are they aware that this is happening in some supermarkets? The next question is from Graham Hoscombe from Sunday Times, and it's directed to the Minister of Energy and Minerals. Is asking, just for clarity, how many coal mines are currently operating, and what is the current coal supply to Eskom? The next question is directed to the Minister of DTI, also from Graham, and is asking, what is being done to ensure that critical components currently needed for the maintenance and repairs of power stations can be sourced from overseas and are able to enter the country? And there's a question from Hashra from Power FM. She's asking a question from Clarity with regards to cigarettes, just to clarify whether there is no lift on the ban of the sale of cigarettes.
No. That's answered.
Okay. Then there's a question from Ed Stoddard from the Daily Maverick, is asking the Minister of Minerals whether do we see the mining sector fully up and running by early May?
Colleagues, because we have made arrangements with other people. There are other people who have their press briefings now. If we can be quick, answer these questions so that we don't delay those who need to have a press briefing. Minister of Mining and Energy.
Thank you, Mvelase, Minister Mthembu. I didn't get the name of the mine that is producing at that capacity, but I will answer the question of what percentage is exported. You will notice that we didn't allow export to go fully. We treated export as a demand-driven aspect of mining, where and that emergency will be in another country. But we said don't close export if there is a demand in another country. So we have allowed coal to be exported at a very reduced capacity. What percentage is demand-driven? You can't fix a percentage in it. Oil storage in Saldanha, is it allowed? I would imagine that it should be allowed, particularly for South African consumption. When the price of oil has gone down, it is in the interest of the country to take advantage of that and stock the oil for the country. And therefore the storage in Saldanha is allowed. What should be limited is storage used by other users outside of the state. How many coal mines are operational? All collieries that supply coal to ESCOM are operational, all of them. We visited few of them to check how far they have gone, whether they're sticking to the health requirements, and we find many of them are operational. And the question is whether mining will be fully operational by beginning of May. I think that is wishful thinking. It will not be fully operational. It would have been ideal if it would, but it will not, because the production is incremental, is phased in, it is ramping up production, and my estimate is that it will go deep into May before it actually come to full production. And that's it. And I think one of the things that I must clarify is that there was a lot of confusion about a letter sent by Impala to its employees to come back to work. It caused confusion in the industry. Both employers, workers, and the government regard that incident as more of an irritation than an issue that should be used to measure the reaction of the industry on this matter. Thank you, Velasa. Thank you, Minister Mtembu.
Thank you very much. I think there was a question for yourself, Minister Patel. Again, we want to repeat the condolences that the Minister of Military Defense has made to the people of South Africa and to the people of Alex. We join in those condolences. Of course, we are saying investigations must take their course so that we arrive at exactly what happened. Thank you very much. Minister Patel.
Thank you very much, colleague. There were two questions that were posed. The first one relates to cooked foods from, I think it was IOL, and we'd like just to clarify the situation. Takeaways and restaurants were closed during the initial announcement of the lockdown. We communicated to the retailers that in fact that also requires that the hot food sections of retail stores should be closed. The police has also communicated that, and we need to ensure that the law as it stands is observed. As we get more information, we constantly review, but as things stand right now, it is very clear what the position is. The second question was asked by Graham Hoskin on the importing of critical components for essential services and sectors that are key to our response to the COVID epidemic. Well, there's a few things we've done there to improve the flow through the ports. The first was to identify in the initial regulations that essential service and essential goods can be imported through the ports. We then found, and the Minister of Transport is here and he's done a lot of work on this, we found that the ports were getting clogged up with imported goods that were not described as essential goods. We then amended the regulations to enable the ports to be cleared so that goods can move more quickly through the ports. And now in today's regulations, there will also be provision around those goods that are currently in the harbors, in the ports themselves, being able to leave, to be exported, so that we clear the ports even further. I think the importance of the question is, I want to underline, is that we want to make sure that when it comes to bringing critical goods into the country, that we are able to do so quickly, and the Minister of Home Affairs and the Minister of Transport has been doing really great work in facilitating that and enabling that. I should also indicate, our chairperson, that a question was asked in the last day or so, that with the original lockdown ending at midnight, what happens to the CIPC certificates that have been issued. And I should indicate that the CIPC will be sending a revised certificate to companies that previously applied. The certificate will more clearly indicate what is the status of the document, that it is a certificate to indicate that a company has lodged its information with the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, and that the company is declaring, the CEO or responsible official is declaring that it complies fully with the regulations. Of course, the test in law are the regulations themselves. I should also indicate that when people are issued with permits, it is important to ensure that the name and contact details of the person who issues the permit in terms of Schedule C is clearly available and visible, so that the law enforcement officers, who are the means by which we ensure that these regulations are implemented, are able to contact the responsible officials. It's a point that the Minister of Police has underlined and that I want to draw attention to. So those cover the questions that were put to me. Thank you.
Minister of Transport. Okay, Minister of Home Affairs. Nothing. Minister of, is there any question where that was again directed to you, sis? None. Thank you very much. We are told that there's just one question. How soon is the real question? Is it, go as this number?
There are a couple, Minister.
There are a couple?
Yes.
Okay, we can only take a couple.
Okay. A couple being 5.
I think let's take 3, then we close.
Ooh, all right. Lest we be accused of censorship. The question.
By the way, everybody knows that we have a meeting now at 2 of the National Coronavirus Command Council led by the President. So that's the meeting that we're rushing to. But nonetheless, let's give you the 3 questions quickly.
Thank you, Minister. There's a question to the Minister of Justice from Brian Sokutu at The Citizen. He's asking, in the event of the President extending the lockdown, what is the legal process to be followed and what will be the role of Parliament? Can the President carry on without a parliamentary rectification? Then there's a question by Tidi Madia from News 24 asking the Minister of Social Development, the relaxed regulations on transporting or movement of children does it also apply to the movement between provinces? And the last question is to the Minister from Jan de Lange from the report. It's directed to the Minister of Minerals and Energy, and it's quite a long question. It says, firstly, how many licenses for partial operation other than coal have been issued? 2, how will workers travel from mining sending areas out without public transport in operation? 3, do mines have the capacity to test for COVID-19? 4, the announcement implies that mines will have to set daily tests for workers who are not living on mine premises, which sounds quite improbable given the current testing challenges. Will mines have to write their own internal regulations for social distancing and hygiene, and how will the department police that?
That to, again, to our colleagues who are listening at home, if we didn't have the challenge of another meeting now, we would have taken all the questions as we always do. But we will allow some ministers to leave now to go to the meeting of the National Command Council. Minister Zulu, would you like to start answering the question?
Yes, thank you very much. Of course, the children have to be moved because here's what actually brought us into deciding that we've got to make the changes. Some of the children had gone on holiday, for instance, to be with grandparents, and many of the children have to go back to their principal parent because they also have to start doing their homework, as the Minister of Basic Education indicated that many of those children are children who live with parents who are willing and wishing to start the education program for their children until such time that announcements are made when schools are going to open. So we had quite a huge number of children that needed to move. We also took into consideration, as the Department of Social Development, considering, of course, the fact that the interest of the children must also be taken very seriously, but also the parents who were now getting very stressed and stressful about the fact that they are unable to assist their children. Some of the grandparents obviously were saying, look, we've had these children long. There are grandparents also who need their space at the end of the day. But the numbers pointed to us that if we don't assist them, we might end up with a worse problem of psychosocial challenges, which then would have to deal with later on. So the children are supposed to move wherever they are, and we've had very good discussions with Minister Begicele, as well as the whole structure of the police, as well as justice, where it is necessary for justice to assist us in terms of the movement of the children. But it is a plea, again, to the parents. We've made the plea before even then to say they also need to appreciate the challenges that are faced by the country. They also need to be really sensitive to the fact that the movement of children might end up giving us a trouble. But because we believe in parents, because we believe that parents have the children at heart, we believe that they will take all precautionary measures and make sure that when the children are being moved, all the necessary directives that have been given about washing of hands, and not transporting the children and hanging around with those children. If children have to move, it's from point A to point B, and not stopping and visiting other people, so that they should not make life difficult for the police who have to enforce in the process of movement. I do have confidence that the parents will appreciate this, and they'll do everything they can to make sure that they themselves as parents are safe, but also the children must be safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Zulu. We will now ask Minister Lamola to respond to another question that speaks to Parliament and other related matters.
Thank you very much, Velasa. As we have said from the onset, that we are going to follow the Disaster Management Act. At this stage, there is nothing that necessitates government from changing the current legislation that we are using. So at this stage of this extension, is still the Disaster Management Act, and there's no evidence or anything else that necessitate or dictates that we must change following that procedure of the Disaster Management Act. And the executive will continue to account to Parliament through the established parliamentary process as and when the processes allow it to happen. I think the other issue I would just want to call for the nation is the issue of funerals, which is we are concerned that it is becoming an epicenter of where people come into contact with the disease. So we want the nation to comply with the regulations that are put in place, but also the nation to start a debate on how going forward we will be able to manage this issue, particularly with the kind of cross-pollination that accompanies the attendance of funeral. People from all walks of life come into and converge into a place. Even if the number is 50, it still does pose difficult for us. So I want to call the nation to start an engagement and a debate, also learning from other countries in terms of the funerals. So that is an engagement that we think is necessary among South Africans, religious leaders, traditional authorities, civic organizations, and everyone who is concerned about this issue, because we think this is a space where society will have to come into the party and also help government to contain the virus within that particular space. Thank you, Mvelas.
The last colleague who'll answer is, again, he received many questions today. Minister of Mining and Energy, Bob Mantashe.
What? Nkosazana, let me try to answer the many questions by Yanti Lange. One of the unique demands that people keep on sending is that we must mention open cast specifically. I don't know whether open casts are not mines. Those are mines. When we talk of regulation applicable to the mines, it doesn't exclude a particular type of mining. I think I must assure them of that. Traveling to the mines, when Nkosazana read the rules, I'm sure Jan didn't listen. The following conditions apply to starting and increasing capacity. One is rigorous screening testing program that must be implemented as employees return to work. Two, mining industry must provide quarantine facilities for employees who have tested positive for COVID-19. Data collected must be during screening and testing program must be submitted to the relevant authority. Then transport that Jan is asking about. Mining companies must make arrangements to transport their South African employees from their homes to their respective areas of operation. The distinction that is made there is that the initial program will focus on South African mine workers because we don't want to tamper with the conditions of lockdown in Botswana, Lesotho, Mozambique, or Zimbabwe, because they have their own lockdowns, but will focus on South African mines. And the mining companies will have to actually give grace to those workers who may be away for a longer period. Now, that is the first one. On transport, it is specifically mentioned. The question is whether mines have capacity to screen and test mine workers. Clearly, Jan is a journalist, he never worked in the mine. Every time you come back from leave in the mines, you are undergoing intensive medical testing as a normal course of work. You get there, you go to the hospital. That's why your period of induction takes up to 7 days, because there is an involved period of testing medically. And we say that program and those facilities must be used for screening and testing for COVID-19. And the infrastructure is there, the procedures are there, the processes are there. So the mining companies have the capacity. That's why one of the appeal was, please involve mining, because if you don't test in the mines, there is going to be a spike by the time those workers return. Transport in the mines now, who go to work, that is normal arrangement in the mines for workers to be transported. What some of the collieries have done, which we have given to other mining companies to share, is that they have reduced the number of shifts and therefore reduced the number of people in a bus or a cage. Now, once you reduce the number of shifts, it means you reduce them from 3 shifts to 2 shifts. And there is a space between those shifts. And that space between the shifts allows the mining company to fumigate the workplace and the transport facility. I think I've answered all those questions. Thank you, Velas.
Thank you very much, Mkwati. To the people at home, thank you very much for listening to what we had to say. In the main, this conference was about extending the regulations to cover the second wave of the lockdown until the end of April. And of course, it included certain measures that have now been explained by the various ministers. But of course, the Gazette is there in our website, in the GCIS website, so colleagues and all South Africans can access this information through our website. As we end, thank you very much for staying at home. Thank you very much for saving lives. This virus definitely kills. So we appreciate all the efforts that South Africans are making in ensuring that we save many lives in our country by just doing one thing, staying at home. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.